Let's be honest, the crypto market keeps losing money every day. This week has been rough, and so has the whole month. Most old coins are down more than 20% in just 1 month. I wish I could say, hey, this is over tomorrow and things will look great. We don't know when this chop and bleed will end though, because Bitcoin and even stocks are what we're really interested in here. There are some very large markets out there. We're also keeping an eye on things like gold. The price of gold is very high, but that's not good because it takes a lot of attention away from crypto when gold and stocks go crazy. I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but stores love to trade hype because people love to gamble. This is also the main reason why crypto cycle over cycle has done so well. They love making guesses. They like to make noise. In this case, anger shows up when crypto gets really dull. The price starts to go down in a little while. These days, stores are putting their money in other places like stocks, gold, silver, and so on. Does that mean it will always happen like that? No, the money will start to flow back into crypto once it becomes more interesting. And yes, that's exactly what we want. The price of Bitcoin is currently around 109,000 Ethereum, which is around 3,900. And the price of XRP is around $2 and almost 36 cents. We'd like to see Bitcoin and even XRP do a little better. However, you could make that case about almost every old coin. But there are two things that tie everything together. First, stocks. I did make changes to the debate about stocks. You already know this if you're in the chat. I put up a post. This was done yesterday before the crash. Basically, we were talking about how the S&P had just hit a wall of resistance from September and how I thought it might go back down to the lows from that high. The goal was to reach 6,600. We did wick down to about 69.59%. The big goal was right here, or about $6,600, going all the way back to September 25th. This happened after we hit resistance around the body, close of the September 22nd and 23rd candles, which was around $66.93. So we turned that down, we got this low. This also made Bitcoin drop a little today. Bitcoin dropped to a low of 107.5K. I also made changes to the Bitcoin Discord. I said that the daily close of Bitcoin today would be very important to keep an eye on. This was the end of yesterday. We need to keep this upward trend going. Failure to do so will mean that we have to repeat around 108K. We can see on this chart that the rise is ending. We closed below the trend line on the 15th, which was a Wednesday. Then there was a big sell-off on Thursday. Also, this was very close to stocks. We've stayed at this level so far because I don't want to say, hey, this is holding, this is great. Now, the level we've been at so far is 108K, right? It's the same number that I marked on the chart. This has held up so far. This is the low point in August and the start of September. This needs to be kept up. We will aim for the 702 and 786 retracement zones if we lose this low. This is between 104 and 106K if we don't lose those lows. I would like us to keep them up. That's a great start for Bitcoin, which could lead to a much bigger move back to some of these old highs. In the end, the high from the 13th, which was around 115.54K, is what everyone is most interested in. For Bitcoin to go positive again, we still need to break through that and go over this blue zone. Sure, this is what we want to see, but it will take a little while longer. And finally, we might be able to move into this blue area before we start to rise again. How would that look? Well, it would mostly look like the price action from June when we began to make a lower low, which is also known as bearish price action. And then though, there was a sudden move back to the top. Then we had our low, which was a lower low. After that, we start to rise again to a new high. Not as high as the last time, but the low was still higher. The big rise then showed up. We began to make a higher high at this point. It reached a new high point. You should know that this caused us to make another higher low, which was also another higher high. We had that sell-off again. This is a nice little bottom. It went from a lower high to a higher low to a higher high. Right now, we're selling off again, which is making a lower low. As of right now, our low point is lower than our high point from the end of September. We are, however, still below the lows from the end of August and the start of September. We need to keep this up. We need to get back to the top, and it's going to take a while. The question now is whether we see that or whether we see a little more of a drop before we start to rise again. There are doubts about how this will trade. I think today is going to be very important because the stock market is going to open again, and that's where Bitcoin will really feel the drop in value. However, when it comes to XRP and other cryptocurrencies, many of these charts haven't changed at all. This is because, let's face it, Bitcoin is the main player right now. So whatever Bitcoin does, all of crypto will closely follow it. Now, liquidations were the most important thing that happened today. We can still see that these liquidations are adding up. When it comes to leverage, it seems like no one is learning, which is crazy, right? The market lost $600 million just 1 week after the biggest loss of money in history, when $20 to $30 billion was lost in seconds. Of course, this market is always wiping out people who don't know how to trade and are using debt. Do not use advantage. I've said this a lot in the last 2 weeks. You can get rich in the space without using pressure. Hold your ground and be sure of your trades. And that's it. Take the money you made on the way up and pay yourself. Everything will be fine. Get your first payment ready. Everything will be okay. When it comes to this market, I think it's been very gloomy for the last few days. When we look at the coin market cap again, fear and greed are both back down to 28. At this point, things are at their lowest since April of this year, and it looks like we're about to reach a point of great fear. This makes me so damn optimistic. This is the Bitcoin bear market, that's right. This is a quote from Peter Schiff, whose account has 1.2 million followers. A lot of people like Peter. I told them that when all the noise about the trade war and political nonsense stops, they will be shocked by what happens. It's hard to imagine right now, but crypto will add trillions to its market cap, and this will be the biggest all season in history. It will pay off soon. This is Peter's post. Bitcoin's lunch is being eaten by gold. It costs 32% less in gold now than it did at its peak in August. The Bitcoin bear market is going to be very bad. If you want to avoid getting broke, sell your fake gold now and buy real gold. It's really funny. It's so funny because, once more, you guys know I'm not a Bitcoin major when it comes to Bitcoin. Here is a picture of Bitcoin's big picture. Okay, now if we must go back, let's only go back to the lowest point of the bear market in 2022. Bitcoin has gone up by more than 687% so far. There is going to be a huge push to the top. Let's move on to gold. When we look at gold, let's take a quick look at this and then go back to the 3-week view. I'll clean up let's go back to September. Let's look at the lowest points in 2022 again. Okay? In other words, this is sometime between the end of September 2022 and the beginning of October. Gold is up 169%.